Hey everybody, it's me again. Been a while, been a long while. I just wanted to talk about maybe my travel experiences going back to the United States and back from here in Vilcabamba, and maybe some of the reasons I haven't been online. I've been here since mid-May, and mostly I've just been involved in my own healing processes, very private, a lot of meditation, change in diet. And I'm honestly not always comfortable filming people on the streets, especially in a small town where everybody knows each other. And I haven't really been getting out and about much. I've been pretty much staying at home working on my inner work. So I really didn't have much to say. But anyway, I went back to the States a few weeks ago. And boy, traveling from here and well within the States is really challenging. So I thought I'd talk about that a little bit. So from Vilcabamba, if you want to, fly internationally, you have to get to either Quito or Guayaquil or Cuenca. And from here, you need to take a private taxi to the airport outside of Loja in Catamayo, and that cost me $84 round trip. So you got that, the extra time. It's an hour, give or take. Windy roads, back roads. And then you have, the only choice is on Aero Regional. There are only, 3 or 4 flights a day. They start at 6 in the morning and end at 6 at night. And it's about a 50-minute flight. But depending on where you're going and what time you don't mind arriving, you may have to wait in Quito Airport because Aero Regional only goes to Quito. So that limits your choices of airlines and times to fly. Again, depending on what time you're willing to arrive. If I were just going home to my own apartment, I wouldn't care what time I arrived. And I could have taken an early morning flight and then caught an afternoon international flight. However, if you're going to visit other people and they're, my stepmom, and staying at their home, I don't want to be arriving in the middle of the night, by taking an afternoon flight, and plus I had to drive for 4 hours once from Miami to their house. So it, depending on your route and what you have to do, it's going to limit what time of an international flight you could take. So for me, I wanted to take a morning flight so I could arrive in Miami at a decent hour, a direct flight to Miami. I did that for the direct flight because otherwise I would have had to spend another 12 hours somewhere else to get a connection to Tampa. So, I get to Miami at a decent hour and rent a car, and then the 4-hour drive to Sarasota across the Everglades. So that meant I spent over 12 hours overnight in Quito Airport. Now, yeah, I could have, gone and spent money on an expensive hotel or, who knows where for a cheaper hotel. But then I would have to been back like super early in the morning because, you have to be there at least, 2 or 3 hours before an international flight. So anyway, it was a long drama, and, I took the last flight from Loja, arrived in Quito about 6:15 in the evening, and my flight to Miami wasn't until 9:15 in the morning. So I did get something to eat, and then just found a gate, to just kind of kick out and kick back. I had pre-checked in, so I was able to enter the concourse beyond security. And I thought that would be the most comfortable place to be, but it really wasn't. There's just nothing but really hard plastic chairs out there. But, you could hook up to the internet and do your charging or whatever you needed to do. And I ended up having a really great conversation with one of the viewers of my videos. Shout out to Jan. Hey, it was great to meet you. How trippy was that? Running into somebody who recognized me. Anyway, we had a nice conversation, but again, it was a long wait and, a long day. I don't sleep very well in public places, but I did have a nap on the plane. The plane went very well. I was on LATAM Airlines, And, you know, they do a pretty good job. There was blankets and pillows on every seat. There was a hot sandwich served. I mean, I got moved up just by asking at the last minute to get moved up, or, you know, if I was willing to pay for it. But they said, no, it's free. You know, if I had done that online, you know, a week prior, it would have cost me plenty. But, you know, they moved me up to like row 4, and I ended up having the whole row to myself. It was amazing. It was so cozy. And then, you know, landed in Miami, and Hertz Rent-A-Car totally messed up my rental and gave me an electric car, which I specifically requested a non-electric car. I know nothing about electric cars. They, you know, the guy at the gate was like, oh, but it'll cost you $15 a day extra to get a gas car. And I'm like, that's what I requested. But, you know, what are you going to do? You just need to get on the road. So I took the electric car. I get in the garage with this car, and I'm like, I don't know anything about this car. I don't know how to start it. I don't know how to open the bloody trunk. I don't know anything about this car, and I certainly don't know about the charging infrastructure anywhere. And so a woman helped me, you know, oh, here's how you pop the trunk. And then I literally sat in the car for like an hour in the garage trying to figure, you know, like, how do I run this thing before I get on the road getting out of Miami, of all places, very busy freeway system. So I finally get on the road, and I didn't have internet on my phone. I bought a chip in Miami, a new SIM card for the States. Very easy, they told me. They advertised, oh, this is the easiest thing in there. Well, not so much. I was not able to get it going. You apparently needed the internet to set up the account to buy time on this stupid SIM card. I was like, oh my God. So, note, don't go to Best Buy to get a SIM card. Go to, I ended up in Sarasota going to one of the phone companies, and he set it up for me. But by then, you know, I'd driven and gone crazy without having internet. So I get to, you know, across the Everglades, and I mean, these things do not get good mileage. I mean, they don't have a very big range. That 97% charge in Miami was not going to get me all the way to Sarasota. So I stopped in Fort Myers, and by this time it's dark. I stopped at Fort Myers, the international airport, purposely to get internet so I could look for charging locations. And I thought, okay, there's some here that's right up the freeway. I'll go stop there. So I drive up the freeway and go to this, you know, one place to finally find it. And I get there, and it's like, you need an app. You can't use a credit card. And I'm looking around. It's the mall, and I don't even know what to do now. There's no place to get internet again to look further and everything. And I finally, there was two people sitting there in their cars charging their cars. I just went up and tapped on this guy's, you know, window. I'm like, can you help me? You know, do you know any place that takes a credit card? You know, I don't know anything about these stupid cars, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And when we were, you know, trying to figure out if he could, you know, help me with his internet or whatever, and he finally ended up just using his account. He moved the charge percentage down to 60%. He showed me how he was doing that, how you move the amount that you want to charge the car. And he charged the car for me up to 60%. I, you know, gave him cash, of course. You know, but he was like, oh God, he was a savior. Totally a savior. So by this time, I'm, you know, still not able to have internet to call my stepmother or anybody to tell her how late I am now. So I finally get back on the road, and I get up there, and it's, you know, probably a good 2 hours longer than I thought it would be. And then the next day, I wanted to, you know, charge the car. And I go, on the way in, I stopped at a 7-Eleven to get something on the way to the house. And there was a charging station there. And this woman was charging her car. And I looked and I said, oh, do these charging stations take credit cards, and we ended up chatting. And she had had the same nightmare experience that I had. She was just had that zombie look on her face, but we commiserated our electric car trauma together, and it seemed to be helpful for both of us. Anyway, it did take credit cards. And so the next day I went back on my way. I had an Apple Care appointment for my computer. So on the way there, I thought, well, I'll stop and charge the car. Well, again, these things, they take forever to charge. So not only do you have to figure out where to do it, but you have to plan a lot of extra time to fill your tank. And I get there and I want to move the percentage I want to fill it to back up to, 90% or whatever. They say not to fill it to 100%. And I move it up there and I start charging, but the thing will only charge to the 60% that the guy had set it for the night before. And I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? 60% is not going to get me across the Everglades to Miami. So I'm freaking out again. And then, so I went, well, that's all I had time for as it turned out anyway. I was going to be late for the appointment now. So I go, I'm like, fine, I'll figure this out later. And then I can't, I unlock, hit the unlock button for the thing, the nozzle thing. And I get out to pull it out and it won't come out. It's stuck in there. I'm like, oh my God, I hate electric cars. I hate it. And so, I went in to ask, the clerk, but he had a long line of people. He says he'll be out there in a minute, and I'm thinking, people keep coming in. He's got a lot of people. He's never coming out. So I just go, I don't know what to do. So all of a sudden, this woman who apparently heard me walked up, and she had her phone with the internet. And she said, well, if you jiggle it, apparently if you just jiggle it, and press it in and jiggle it, it'll come out. And I tried that, and it didn't work. But then she got on there and tried it, and it popped out. So another angel of mercy saving my bacon. So the next day, and I'm only there for 4 days, and it's complete family stuff every day. So, I'm kind of busy, don't have a lot of time to mess with this stuff, but now I gotta make time. So the next day, a bunch of us are heading to the beach. Thankfully, my sister was driving, so I could sit there on hold with the service representative from Hertz Rental Car to try and figure out what to do about this car problem so that I would be able to return to Miami and make my flight. And thankfully, she was really good. It took a while, but she kept coming back on saying, sorry, I'm holding for, the fix-it people and seeing what we can do about it. So she did keep checking in with me. And just by the time we got to the beach, she came on and said, well, we can't, you're gonna have the opportunity to trade the car out at the closest airport, which up there is Bradenton, Sarasota. It's about a half hour away from the house. And I said, well, is it going to be a gas car? She says, well, probably not, but, we'll get you a car that's working. I'm like, okay. So we had, time at the beach and got back to the house, and there was supposed to be the big family dinner, that evening, but I still had time. So I went up to the airport. She gave me a case number, and I'm thinking, gosh, how long is this going to take? Is it going to be a bunch of forms I have to fill out or whatever? And I didn't know where to go. Do I go to the return lot? Do I park and go into the counter? But I took a chance and just went into the return lot, and that was the right place. And they had a little, cubby hole there with some people, and it took about 2 minutes. I'm like, oh, thank God. And it was a gas car. Yay! So anyway, that issue was finally resolved. But, on the return, I get to, Miami, of course, and the flight, or direct flight back to Quito. But it gets in mid-afternoon, or no, it got in after the last flight back to Loja. So, again, I had to spend the night sitting around in Quito Airport, but was not able to check in with Aero Regional for the flight back to Loja online, or guess, so I was not able to go into the security area. I had to wait until 4 a.m. to for, you know, the gate agents to supposedly show up for the 6 a.m., the first flight. So I was out in just the public area, but it was actually more comfortable because they were like couch type things around the thing. So there was more comfortable seating, and I actually got a little bit of nap time in. Ended up having like 3 great conversations with other people who were out there waiting for flights and for checking in, and they were all like international travelers. You know, one couple was on their way to Quito. They had 6 suitcases with them, which contained all their possessions, and they used to spend, you know, 3 months here, 3 months there. Another woman splits her time between Quito and New York City. And another young woman a German young woman, was traveling, backpacking around the world for a year before going to college. So they were all really very interesting conversations, but still it's pretty exhausting to sit there for another 12 hours waiting, you know. And then the air regional people didn't open the check-in process at 4 a.m. when they were supposed to. And literally everybody on the flights was lined up. I mean, literally the whole flight of people was in line by the time they showed up. So it was just, you know, kind of chaotic getting everybody checked in and their bags checked. But, you know, we got into the gate and loading almost like within half an hour because it took so long to get everybody in through security and get checked in. But anyway, we got on the flight, the first flight, and made it back to Catamayo. And get there, and there's a band playing and all kinds of people with television cameras. We're like, what is going on? For this first day of the big arts festival in Loja. But anyway, so, you know, both trips to and from were like 24 hours long. Now that included the 4-hour drive, which should have been a 4-hour drive between Miami and Sarasota. But still, you know, it's a long trip, and a lot of that is because there's only the one choice of Aero Regional out of Loja, and it only goes to Quito, whereas in Cuenca, you have a couple of airlines, and you can get to either Guayaquil or Quito, and they have a lot more choices of time, so you wouldn't necessarily have to be waiting 12 hours in an airport. So, yeah, it's a big difference. It's a big difference. And of course, if you're in Cuenca, you don't have an $84 round trip taxi fee to the airport as well. So, you know, it was interesting. It was challenging, and I guess that's one of the things about living, you know, so far from the madding crowd in these smaller areas is, you know, if you're not with a car, if you don't have a car, which I don't want one, you have to depend on other transportation, and the transportation's, you know, it's expensive, and it's, if you need to go a distance, it's expensive, and it's limited. You know, as you heard recently, I get, you know, really movement sick on the buses, so I can't really do the buses. And that was the other issue. I wanted to then go to the art festival in Loja, and they do have a cooperative taxi here. You need all four people for the taxi to leave, so sometimes you wait a little bit, but it's only $2.50 each way. And they have the office in Loja where you can go wait for the return. And I've only waited at the most maybe 20 minutes once, so it's not a big deal. So I just went up the other day thinking I was going to, you know, visit the arts fair, and really all that was going on was a bunch of kids stuff with, you know, chalk drawing in the streets, which was really cute and all of that. But there were no, like, artisans out. And I asked them, like, where are all the artisans? Is this just a kid's day and I missed that the schedule is different? He says, oh, they're only out in the evening, which makes going pretty much impossible, again, because the buses and the cooperative taxis stop running at, I don't know, like, I think she said the cooperative taxi, the last trip from Loja was 7 o'clock. And I think maybe the last bus, which I don't want to take because it makes me sick, is at 9 o'clock. So, you know, it's not really functional to go to Loja for any kind of evening event unless you're going to stay overnight or pay for a private ride, which would be more spendy for sure. So, you know, the transportation things, if you don't own a car, can be pretty limiting. So that's basically why I wanted to talk about the one thing about living here in Vilcabamba and going back to my time with the inner work. If you're interested in any kind of healing, inner healing, especially, the reported energy of this valley is true. It's a very powerful, energetic place for that kind of work. And if you really want external help with those kind of things, there are a number of healer type people, both physical and whatever, throughout town. There are some very, very high quality, legit folks, and some, who knows? You can pretty much call yourself anything you want to call yourself here. So if you are interested in that kind of help, be sure you really get references and check it out, because I suspect there's just people calling themselves whatever they want to call themselves. So the expat population here is interesting, as reported by others. It's diverse. There's a lot of very nice people that I've met, and there's a lot of people that I really don't want to be around. They've brought their American energy with them and are kind of complaining about the Ecuadorian ways or whatever. So it's a real mixed bag. A lot of great people. The Ecuadorians are lovely. I have great neighbors, and it's very quiet, very tranquil. People, especially outwards, most people's properties are fenced, and they keep their dogs on their property. So it's a lot safer, for walking. You don't have crazy mad dogs chasing you and biting you on the street. So that's very nice. I don't know about getting out and walking and hiking. I've heard such mixed things about, theft, petty theft, out on trails and stuff, and I walk alone, and, that's just how it is. I don't necessarily have the fitness to go on the big uphill hikes. There is a hiking group, but they do some pretty serious stuff, and I'm just not able to do that. And plus, I actually prefer hiking alone. So I haven't been doing much because I literally, if this phone got stolen, I would not be able to replace it. And, I don't know. Other people say it's perfectly fine, don't worry about it. But I don't know. That's the thing, is I don't really know. So, I'll walk along the river, the pathways along the river. There are some easier, hikes. The Wilco Trail, I think, is easier, and all that, but so I can't really speak about that. I can't really speak about the ease of making friends because I don't do it. I'm pretty much a hermit, and have mostly, like I say, been doing inner healing work private, and so I can't really speak about that. There are tons of restaurants, a lot of Ecuadorian restaurants, which are lovely and very, very affordable. The expat restaurants, there's, cuisines of all types if you want it, but they're more expensive. People say you should know what prices are, and you don't want to, contribute to jacking up the costs, but they're more expensive, and honestly, I don't see any reason for it. They're using pretty much the same ingredients as the local restaurants, but it is what it is. So, it's cheap by American standards, don't get me wrong, but they're expensive by Ecuadorian standards. And I've changed my diet pretty radically, so I don't even go out to the Ecuadorian restaurants. I eat at home, so I don't really have, a lot to offer about that. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about the traveling and, the experience of being a little more in an isolated place in the country. For my dietary reasons and for the travel reasons, I'm actually considering, I love it here, don't get me wrong, but I'm considering at the end of my lease going to Cuenca, because it'll just make getting around and having the things I need for my diet and all of that just so much easier. Anyway, that's on the back burner of consideration. My lease here isn't up until the end of May, or in the middle of May. So I'm, not overly concerned about it now. In the meantime, shirt sleeves and beautiful day. We have entered the rainy season, but it's late to start and not as heavy as regular as whatever normal is. And so there's a lot more rain needed. And I'm sure most of you who have watched other videos, there were a lot of wildfires during the dry season. It was hot and it was super, super dry. And a lot of the mountains around here burned, so that was pretty... I had my bag packed a couple of times for sure, because they're kind of close. But it was an unusual fire season from what I'm told, so, you know, it's always something wherever you go. But anyway, that's my latest update. I may make another video about the dietary thing that has nothing to do with Ecuador, but it's maybe something that some people are interested in, because that's helped me do a lot of healing and a lot of weight dropping. So anyway, that's it for me. So ciao to everybody and peace.